Wrestlebread podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee, and this is episode 87 of the Wrestlebread podcast. So we had NXT Takeover War Games. We had an AEW Dynamite that was pretty good. We had an NXT episode that was pretty good as well. We also had Raw that was... it started off on a pretty bad note, but then it got better towards the end of the night. And then we also have some news and developments as well. So starting out with that news, news has come out what the original plan was for WrestleMania 36. So apparently Rhea Ripley was actually supposed to beat Charlotte at WrestleMania 36. And apparently Bianca Belair was supposed to be added to the match as a triple threat. So that was the decision, but apparently that decision had changed. And I find that very interesting that that was the decision to... the decision was for change to Charlotte winning instead, and Bianca Belair didn't get her time to shine on the main roster. We all kind of figure out the reason why, and I think that it was, it was a poor decision for Rhea Ripley to lose, because what does Charlotte have to gain by winning, for the umpteenth time? So, hearing that the original plan was actually for her to win is kind of a little bit upsetting. Next up, we also had Goldberg, who says that he wants to take down the tribal chief. He was on the bump this week, and they had mentioned, I don't know how it came up, but he mentioned how he wants to go against Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns hid from him, and Roman Reigns has a subpar spear, and he's the creator of the spear, and no one can do it like him, this, that, and the third. Which, he was, Goldberg was the one who created the spear. He was. And even though a lot of people say that Edge does the spear a lot better than him, and Rhino also made it popular as well, even though we would say Gore whenever he does his. But him calling out Roman Reigns is kind of, we all know where it's going to go. It's one of the reasons why people are not happy whenever Goldberg comes around, because it's not like he's putting over people. It is mainly a check off of his, what I want to do before I retire list, which isn't about putting over any talent. He also had an interview with Bleacher Report as well. He was promoting his episode of WWE Untold, which is coming out this Sunday, and he is signed through 2023 with 2 matches per year. So he did already had the one match. No, actually, I think that was 2 matches. I'm not sure. No, him and Taker was last year, I believe. This year has been a little bit hazy, so I'm not 100% sure. But he's supposed to have 2 matches per year. We already know the match that he had, at WrestleMania. He was supposed to go against Roman Reigns. Of course, with COVID, Roman Reigns decided to stay home, for good reason, because he just had twin boys, and he didn't want anything to happen to his twin babies. So he backed out. But of course, because of that, because that we didn't get Roman Reigns versus Goldberg, now Goldberg feels as though, it's something that's kind of old. So now he's calling out the tribal chief. Even though on paper it would be a good match, Goldberg even said himself during his interview with Bleacher Report that he would have loved to have faced Roman Reigns 10 years ago while he was in his prime. 10 years ago. And so he also talked about other people he wanted to go against. He mentioned Randy Orton as well, someone that he wants to go up against. But I don't know. I I wasn't. I'm not the biggest Goldberg fan. So when he appeared in WWE after the fall of WCW, I wasn't. I was happy. I'm gonna lie. I was hyped because I'm like, all right, cool. We get the matchups that we haven't seen and stuff. But once I started seeing like, all of a sudden it's him taking down people, like coming out. It's that whole part-time thing, where come out of nowhere, get the title shot, and go. I mean, that's kind of what everyone disliked about Brock Lesnar as well. Even when the Rock was kind of doing it as well. Even, as much as I like Rock, I really didn't like when he like come out of nowhere, get the title, immediately get the WrestleMania. So I feels like this is what we're building up for. We're building up for WrestleMania, or probably Royal Rumble or something like that to kind of get that going. Also, another piece of news as well is that Drew Gulak is allegedly training people down in NXT. He's training Raw or SmackDown superstars. The rumor is that Vince McMahon is pissed off with the way some people are wrestling on Raw and SmackDown, and decided to use Drew Gulak as someone to train. So if you're listening live, you can put in the chat who you think it is. There's no word of who these people are who are going to NXT to be trained with Drew Gulak. And if you wonder, like, if Drew Gulak have like any type of repertoire or anything, he has a Twitch, and on his Twitch he has live streams where he talks about the basics of wrestling and things like that. So if you ever want to be a wrestler, definitely follow him on Twitch and check out his streams. It's very informative. But yeah, there's no word of who it is that Vince McMahon is pissed off about. Apparently, it's more than one person, and they're upset. Apparently, it says big guys, but I don't know if it's big as in weight or big as in tall. So that could be a number of people as well. So going into AEW, some more news. So we saw on AEW Dynamite that Santana did not show up, and the reason being is that his father-in-law had passed away. He mentioned this on social media. Apparently, he's been going through a lot through 2020 besides the pandemic. He was very close with his father-in-law, and he made a post dedicated to his father-in-law about how his father-in-law raised him, and what his father-in-law meant to him and to his mother. So thoughts and prayers to Santana and his family through this hard time. Another death that we had is Tommy Tiny Lister, who died yesterday at the age of 62. If you should know him, if you're a wrestling fan, he is also known as Zeus. He feuded with Hulk Hogan back in 1989, and this stemmed from the movie No Holds Bar. If you haven't seen that movie, definitely check it out. It's definitely an 80s movie. I watched it probably like maybe a year or two ago. I just came across it on on I don't know what I was watching it on. I don't know if it was on my stick or something like that, but I came across the movie and I had watched it. And looking back at it, like, it was a big movie back then. I mean, yeah, Hulk Hogan did a lot of movies around that time, and so it's very funny. It's a funny movie now. Watching this movie now, you definitely laugh at certain things, Hulk Hogan acting and stuff like that. But definitely check it out if you haven't. So I'm going to AEW Dynamite recap before I hit NXT Takeover. So this episode of Dynamite was pretty good, I have to say, and a lot of people are excited about the fact that Sting has come to AEW. Starting out with the segment between them two, Cody comes out, his shorter over the top entrance. I always call it the Triple H entrance because it's shorter now. I give him credit. He shortened it now, but it used to be the full song plays, the smoke, the pyro coming up through the middle and stuff like that, and no one else uses. But it's his company. I mean, he's the vice president. If I had the power of a wrestling company, with a wrestling company, I would have over the top entrance too. So maybe I should stop calling him the Triple H of AEW. But Cody came out to cut a promo. Sting comes out, and Tony Schiavone was interviewing Cody. And Sting comes out, he goes to hug. He goes to hug Tony. Arn Anderson was in the ring. He gave Sting the respect and left the ring. Tony Schiavone was giving him the respect as well. And they had a little moment where Sting told Tony, to sit there and say, "It's Sting," like he used to back in the day, which he did. They hugged, so, that was a good moment. And so Cody starts saying how, he's been looking forward to going against Sting and this, that, and the third. And we kind of know where it's going, of him wanting to go one-on-one against Sting. And I don't know the exact words that Sting has said. Like, he said something along the lines, like, basically, sit your ass down. He said, "I'm not here for you." He said, "I know that you know what's going on." He said, "You know that I'm signed with AEW." And he's apparently signed with AEW for a long time. And he's planning to be with AEW a long time. And he feels as though that AEW is home. Which is very interesting because, he went to WWE first. And I don't know, what happened with WWE that he decided that AEW was a better place for him. Maybe it could be the way that he's going to be used, because you kind of get the feeling that he's going to be used to put over talent. That's what I'm hoping he's going to be used for. Because he is 61. It seems like he's going to get into the ring. I don't know how good he's going to do. I can't knock him for his wrestling ability until I see it, and then I can sit there and say, like, maybe Sting should sit down somewhere and go coach. But, he might do good. He might surprise us. But it definitely seems like he's going to do something with Darby Allin, which I'm over the moon happy for Darby for, because you can kind of see you definitely see the similarities between him and Sting. I mean, he was sitting up in the rafters holding the title, and Sting mentioned how he is at AEW because, this place seems familiar, and he said, there's a lot of things that seem familiar, and he looks over at Darby Allin. And he, talks to Cody a little bit, and then he gives him a bit of a condescending pat. Or no, he kind of put his arm around his neck and then says, "See you around, kid." So I don't know if he's kind of putting him down because he sees him as, Dusty's kid, seeing him grow up throughout the years since Dusty was in WCW. Or, I mean, yeah, since they were working together, and especially, not probably taking him seriously. And you kind of see a bit of a moment with Cody that he's a bit pissed off that Sting doesn't want to go against him because he had, I guess, some of the face paint on Cody, and he kind of rubs it off in a very, he seemed like he was pretty upset and rubbed it off. And so, yeah. And then there was the segment, there was a sit-down interview with Tony Schiavone, Brandy, and Shaq, because they mentioned that it was going to be a sit-down with Shaq. Brandy had a sling in her arm from the attack from Jaydee. And Shaq mentioned that he supports Jaydee, but he doesn't appreciate the attack. And Brandy was like, I really appreciate that. And I really didn't get why Brandy was there. I guess, to push the story along until, of course, when Shaq runs away. When Brandy goes to walk off, Shaq goes, I can't even do the Shaq voice, but, he was like, you can learn something from Jaydee. And Brandy was like, really? Really? She's like, that's how we're going to go? Is that where we're going to go? And she took a cup of water and splashed it on Shaq. And, of course, that's the meme that we're going to use for the rest of 2020. So apparently, they mentioned to Shaq tweeting at Cody. I didn't get a chance to check that out. But apparently there's tweets that they were going back and forth with each other, and seems like we're definitely leading to a match between them two. And then we get to another segment where Kenny Omega shows up, and I'm very surprised that the main event for this Dynamite was MJF versus Orange Cassidy, which I'm actually kind of fine with. I'm happy that the vice presidents kind of took a step back and decided to not let the main event be about them, but about up and coming talent that is pretty much homegrown with AEW, because they could have easily done that. Omega could have definitely been the main event. Cody and Sting could have definitely been the main event. They could have ended with Shaq, because they could have used Shaq's celebrity power and say, keep holding on until Shaq comes. The Inner Circle promo could have been the main event as well. So, that little detail, even though some people really didn't appreciate the match because it is a repeat, it really didn't forward the whole storyline with the Diamond Ring tournament just for MJF to win his ring back again. But I think the whole story was, of course, involving with Miro, Kip Sabian, and Orange Cassidy and everything. But I don't know. I think it was it was a good thing that they had them to do the main event. But Kenny Omega shows up in a helicopter first off. Now I didn't get to see all of his promo, all of the interview that he did on Impact, but it was pretty funny though. They teased that AEW would buy Impact. They also talked about how Kenny Omega is going to be a collector, and he's going to be a collector of titles, which I figure it's like that's a bit of interesting thing, that it sounds like he's going to go after the TNA championship, which I don't know how really to feel about that. Like, business wise, it would be good for Impact because it will get more eyes on them, especially if they're working with NWA like they've been doing as well. And I don't know. I think it's interesting, but I don't know how to really feel that they're going to have the AEW champion also be the champion for Impact. I feel like that championship can go to other people who are with Impact, if that makes sense. I think that the title could definitely it could go to someone else and give them a better chance than it would be. But going to Impact, the interview which Dunne and Omega had did with Josh Matthews, and it was a pretty funny segment. They were replacing the nameplate on the championship from Jon Moxley to Omega, and they gave Moxley the little nameplate. They gave Omega the nameplate with Moxley's name on it. And Omega was like, I should throw it in the trash. And then he looked at Josh Matthews. He was like, oh yeah, you're familiar with Ambrose, right? Tough Enough season 1. And of course that killed me. I mean, that was hilarious as all hell. But yeah, it was somewhat similar promo that Kenny Omega did on Wednesday, but it wasn't as funny as it was on Impact. So if you didn't get to see the interview on Impact, definitely check it out. But I love Kenny Omega in this character, this obnoxious, like, Miami Vice dressing cleaner with this obnoxious entrance where Justin Roberts have to do a different fact every single time. He mentioned how this time he talked about the championships, how he's collecting the championships, and I don't think he mentioned the how many wins he had with this one. But I think he did start mentioning that he's collecting championships. And we got 4 female sweepers this time instead of 2. So we're getting a bit of a come up since he's the champion. And he's back to his, his good night and bang that he used to do. He stopped doing it in AEW. I do know that he was going to do it for Fight for the Fallen, but they decided not to, because Fight for the Fallen was to raise money for victims of gun violence, and they felt as though it wasn't appropriate for him to do it. And he hasn't really done it since. So it's definitely good to see him kind of like get back to who he used to be outside of AEW. Now, I've seen him wrestle in other promotions. I watched some matches, but I'm not like 100% familiar with him. I've seen him when it comes to video game stuff like that, but I haven't really got to really see him as a wrestler. But I knew when he came to AEW that who he was. I felt as though he wasn't at the tier that he was before he joined AEW, back when he was in New Japan and everything. So, Inner Circle is still together. I thought that was a pretty interesting segment that they had. MJF trying to play it up that he's innocent, and Jericho kind of called him out on his mess. Sammy Guevara shaking hands with MJF, and Ortiz. He's the funny one. Excuse me. He's the funny one. He's the one who is a bit of telling jokes and things like that. And he was the one who was mainly serious. He was the one that sat there and said, "Hey, you two, let's shake hands and things like that, and let's come together." And he told Sammy Guevara, he's like, "Look, you're better than MJF, and you know it," which got a bit of a reaction from everyone. I thought that was a pretty good line as well. And so you see MJF kind of react to that, and so they shook hands, and then Chris Jericho mentioned, of course, the elephant in the room, which was Wardlow and Jake Hager staring at each other like two exes at a birthday party. They started mentioning how, no, he stares at me, no, he's been staring at me, and finally they decided to not stare at each other, and that is that. And they did come together to give middle fingers in the middle of the ring. But overall, this was a bit of a good AEW Dynamite. They did have one thing that I'm a bit confused about. So they had Avalon, I think that was her name. They had her wrestling on AEW Dynamite. And the thing that I'm a bit confused about is Shida comes out. I'm happy that she wasn't ringside this time. But she comes out and she looks like she was afraid of Abaddon. She looked like she was afraid of Abaddon. And I was a bit confused because I could have sworn they faced each other before. I don't know if it was on Dynamite or if it was on Dark. If it was on Dark, then I guess I understand, because what happens on Dark kind of don't really exist like that. So I was a bit confused about that. Another interesting thing that happened was the Dark Order is trying to recruit Dustin Rhodes, and they're calling him Seven. And so if you don't know, Dustin used to be known as Seven. I think this was in WCW. I forgot what year it was, but Dustin Rhodes used to be known as Seven. It was a bit weird. I think he was, let me see. He was in all white face paint, and he had on a hat. So I really didn't know too much about when I didn't really know too much when he did this. But yeah, this was back in the late 90s or the early 2000s. late 90s, early 2000s, he came out as 7, and it was a very weird gimmick. So, but he was in all white face paint. And so when he said, when Evil Uno gave him the number 7, I was like, "Oh, snap." Um, kind of bit of a trigger. So people, of course, the fans kind of reacted to it. If you know more about when he was 7, I wasn't really watching WCW when that happened. So, but I just know what he looked like, and that it was a bit weird. But if you know definitely more about it, definitely let me know either in the chat or tweet at me at Jaydee Talks on Twitter, and tell me what the hell that whole segment was about. But like I said, I wasn't watching WCW when he did that. Um, but yeah, overall, like I said, it was a pretty good episode of AEW Dynamite. So going into NXT Takeover. Of course, like I knew it was going to be a good show. The women started off the Takeover War Games, which I wasn't too surprised about. I knew they was going to start out. I figured they were either going to be first or second. So we had Team Shotzi Blackheart with Shotzi, Amber Moon, Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai versus Team Candice, which was Candice, Toni Storm, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez. Shotzi revealing her new tank, which is a lot bigger, and it had it had a little missile on it, which she shot at Dakota Kai. Of course, they all stood around the tank for the photo op, and Amber Moon and Dakota Kai had started the match. Now, I have to say, Io Shirai, oh my goodness, I don't know how much more in love you can be with that woman, but she came out and I was like, damn, she's hot. Like, Io Shirai, she just oozes it, and she just does this crazy stuff that you have to love her for it. She had the spot where she was on the top of the cage. She had a trash can, put the trash can over her body, and flew off to everyone below, which was crazy, first off. But this was a good match, I have to say. Some people felt as though it was a bit too long. I don't know why people felt that way. This match was for about 35 minutes, which is, if I think normally these matches kind of take a while. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, but normally these War Games match kind of take a while because you're waiting for each member to enter into the cage, and then the match starts from there, and you have to give kind of everyone their own time to shine. The surprising thing with me is that Raquel Gonzalez was the one who got the pin, but she got the pin on Io Shirai. So I don't know if they did that to kind of give her a bit of like a step up, or if they are actually going to have her try to claim a title shot with Io Shirai, which I felt as though it's a bit too early for that. Like, we only know Raquel Gonzalez really because of Dakota Kai. I mean, she had the match against Rhea Ripley, but I feel as though it's way too early for her to get this title shot. Of course, we had the kendo sticks. We had Indy Hartwell interfering as well. They took out Io Shirai before she entered to the match. So that kind of is what delayed the match a bit longer, because War Games couldn't start until all competitors were in the ring. So if Io Shirai knocked out outside the ring, they couldn't really start the match as well. But all the women did very well in this match. The lighting kind of confused me a little bit because there were some spots in the ring where it was a bit dark. But as the pay-per-view went on, I kind of got used to the lighting, and I actually appreciated it, because all the concentration is what's going on in the ring. You're not looking at, the fans that are around the ring. You're not really looking at the fans that are watching from the Thunderdome. So I actually appreciated the lighting. And I always appreciate when NXT does that. NXT kind of makes it so that you're concentrating with what's going on in the ring versus, the obnoxious fan that could be trying to get on screen and things like that. Um, but I like NXT for just straight up concentrating on the match. Um, don't know what we're gonna do with Toni Storm from here. Um, but I am surprised, like I said, Gonzalez getting the pin. Um, Amber Moon doing this crazy eclipse. She was on the top rope and she did it to, I think it was Candice LeRae, onto two chairs. Um, Blackheart performing a senton splash off of a ladder. Oh yeah, that spot. She did the senton splash over the ladder onto Candice LeRae. I was a bit confused because you see Candice LeRae laying there, and she goes and grabs the chair. Um, like probably like 5 seconds before Shotzi Blackheart kind of jumps, and I don't know if if I don't get that timing. I feel as though she should have grabbed the chair as Shotzi was, about to go off to do her move. You know, that way it's a little more believable than for her to kind of grab the chair and we see her pretty much like setting up the spot. I mean, there were some spots where things were disjointed like that. But overall, it was a good match between the women. Definitely. Um, After that, we see Tommaso Ciampa versus Timothy Thatcher. So, of course, this was nothing but technician, of course, because of Timothy Thatcher. A lot of, striking, and Tommaso Ciampa that much of isn't a big high flyer, but this match was very grounded. Um, it was grueling as well. Like hell, Timothy Thatcher was like fucking bleeding from his ear. Um, there was a you know, Champa, with his with knee strikes and everything like that. Um, it was a bit crazy. Now, this match was for about 16 minutes. And so it was a bit long, but it was long enough to kind of tell the story. Of course, Tommaso Ciampa won the match. Some people felt as though Tommaso Ciampa really didn't need the win. Timothy Thatcher is really good in the ring. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I feel as though Tommaso Ciampa is going to start getting the momentum to kind of push himself back into the main event. I mean, wins and losses kind of matter a little more with NXT than it does with Raw and SmackDown. So that's where I kind of get out of it that, it's going to be Tommaso trying to get momentum. But I feel as though Timothy Thatcher definitely got something that NXT really need to take advantage of. After that, we get the strap match versus with Dexter Lumis and Cameron Grimes. This match really didn't do too much for me, I have to say. I was more entertained, unfortunately, with the haunted house match than I was with the strap match. There was a spot, this match was only for about 13 minutes long, and there was a spot where Dexter Lumis had the strap to hit with Cameron Grimes, and you can tell that he wasn't hitting him with all his power. I don't know if it's because how thick the strap was, that. Well, no, he was hitting Cameron Grimes. I mean, he was hitting Cameron Grimes, but you can clearly see that he was hitting the mat versus Cameron Grimes. So I'm going to kind of blame the camera angles for that one, because you could definitely change the camera angle so that it looks like he's being hit with the strap versus us seeing clearly that the strap is mainly hitting the ground. Versus when Cameron Grimes had the strap, he was tearing Dexter Lumis up. So I don't know if Dexter Lumis told him like, hey, I'm going to take it easy on you, but, go all out for me. And then Cameron Grimes came out with a leather strap already in his hand, which that was confusing. Because there was nothing really special with the strap that he had. So it took a little bit for the match to start because Dexter Lumis didn't have the strap attached to him as well. But Dexter Lumis won this match with a guillotine choke submission, and Cameron Grimes had tapped out. It was a lot. The strap match was a lot better from the strap matches from way back in the day. Back when in order to win the match, you had to touch all four corners. So I really appreciate that with this strap match, pinfalls and submissions count instead of touching the four corners, and then you see when it's time to go to the fourth corner, all of a sudden you're out of breath and walking at like 0.3 miles per hour. So I appreciated that. Then we get the vignette. Karrion Kross is back, and they showed a vulture, and with a clock saying TikTok. Of course, I was pretty hyped for that. I like Karrion Kross, and I felt as though it sucked that he got injured and couldn't really defend the championship like that. But he is back, and we're going to get into the NXT Live episode after this. So after that, we get the North American Championship, Leon Ruff versus Damian Priest versus Johnny Gargano. And I unfortunately didn't have faith in Leon Ruff that, he was going to get a win. I felt as though he was there to get pinned. But I give him props, he wanted to be taken seriously. Damian Priest did not want to attack Leon Ruff. He kind of was like, all right, can you please get out of my way so I can actually attack Johnny Gargano? Leon Ruff was refusing to do that. There was even the spot Leon Ruff and Johnny Gargano had teamed up to take out Damian Priest, but Damian Priest powered through and took out the both of them. But then Gargano had turned on Leon Ruff as well. And then there was this spot, oh my gosh, they were on the outside and Damian Priest went to do the went and did the Razor's Edge on Leon Ruff because Leon was like refusing to get out of his way because he kept warning him like, yo, please get out of my damn way. And Leon Ruff was definitely decided to, pack some big balls and was like, nope, I'm not getting out of the way. And so he sat there and did a Razor's Edge through the damn barricade. And I sat there, I cracked the hell up at that. Because Priest kind of like felt bad for doing it, but he was like, you're not getting out of my way. Sorry. Of course, Leon Ruff was then, he got hurt very badly, went to the back. We all knew he was going to do the old come return from the injury spot, which I rather for him had got up from ringside and got into the ring versus being taken into the back. Because, if there were fans there would, NXT fans, they probably would actually pop for that. So I take that back. But, it really didn't do much for the match. I'd rather for him had to kind of got laid out and then eventually get back into the ring versus being taken into the back. Because, it looked like the wind was knocked out of him, So, of course, the match then kind of focused on Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano, which all this kind of started from anyway. And then Leon Ruff comes back from the back area, of course, with the superhero save. And there was a bunch of near falls and stuff like that. Now, of course, when we get towards the end of the match, we get the Ghostface Killer comes out and starts attacking Damian Priest. Excuse me. Ooh. Starts attacking Damian Priest. And I thought it was just the one, but it was like 20 of them. I thought it was retribution at first because of how many people had came out to help out Johnny Gargano. And they was clearly helping out Johnny Gargano because they were attacking Damian Priest. So I was a bit confused at why it was so many people, why there was so many people out there with the Ghostface mask on. Of course, there was one main one who had a lead pipe, and he hit Damian Priest. He attacked Damian Priest, so Damian Priest was knocked out on the, I think it was the outside. And then Gargano pinned Leon Ruff for the, to get his championship back. And then Gargano and the Ghostface had came up, and he went up the ramp, and then, of course, took off the mask, and it was Austin Theory, which was a good surprise. And then Austin Theory, of course, sat there and said it was, he said, "It's me, Austin. It was me all along," which I thought was a very good play on that phrase because his name is Austin Theory. But I thought that was a pretty good twist. But I was just confused at why we saw 20 of them. Did they borrow people from Retribution to come down and attack Damian Priest? So now we get to the main event, and that match with Johnny Gargano, the triple threat match, was for about 17 minutes. It didn't even feel that long because it was a lot that was going on. But then we get to the main event, the Undisputed Era versus Team McAfee. Pat McAfee, Pete Dunne, Danny Burch, and Oney Lorcan. This match, now the biggest thing for me was to see what the hell Pat McAfee was going to do. Because this is a War Games match. You can try to not fight in a regular match, but when you're in a War Games match, there's a higher expectation for you to do more than just a regular basic wrestling match. Now, going back to when he went against Adam Cole, there were a lot of opinions of that match. People were very happy at how much he learned as far as wrestling, but of course he trolled and said he's been wrestling for 2 weeks. But the fact that he kind of went toe to toe with Adam Cole took out a lot of people. And I was very interested to see what the hell was going to happen in this match. So of course he was the second to last because Adam Cole was the last one to come in. And so when Pat McAfee comes in, he kind of sat around and everything like that. And then Adam Cole comes in, and the team Pat McAfee stood by the door, which was smart. To kind of as soon as you come in, your ass is ours. Adam Cole went and got the oh my gosh, what is the word? Fire extinguisher, and took out the team Pat McAfee, which got him to get in there. Of course, they had tables with each Undisputed member name on there, which all went in. There was also chairs and I think candlesticks, and there was also I think it was a cricket bat or something like that. That I think it was Lorcan who grabbed, which I thought was very different. Now, going into what the hell Pat McAfee did, Pat McAfee, first of all, took a chair shot, which I was proud of. Because my thing is, there's nothing for Pat McAfee to really prove to the fans. He could have easily took the route of a lot of celebrities before him and kind of, did a padded match where he's pretty much protected and, did his thing and kind of go. But for him to kind of actually go through all this, he took a chair shot, he took a table spot, he even did a swanton bomb off the top of the cage, which I couldn't believe. But the biggest thing for me, and I'm sure there's going to be some of my podcasting friends who are going to be happy that I mentioned this. But the thing that upset me, was the fact that he kicked out of the Panama Sunrise. when he did that, I was shocked as all hell, first of all, because I was like, first of all, that move gave Adam Cole championships. So I don't know how the hell Pat McAfee got strength, enough awareness to kick out of this finisher. And I was like, the power of Baron Corbin, the power to troll and to get people upset, But the fact that he kicked out of the Panama Sunrise, I couldn't believe it. And it's not even just the Panama Sunrise. He did the super kick. He super kicked him before he did the Panama Sunrise. And Pat McAfee kicked out. And I couldn't believe it. And then Adam Cole goes to do the last shot, and Lorcan has sacrificed himself so that he took the hit. The Undisputed Era, of course, won this match, but the war wasn't won because fucking Pat McAfee kicked out of the Panama Sunrise. You have to take him out now. If this is past wrestling. It's a rookie. Someone who claimed he had 2 weeks storyline wise. Let's go storyline wise. Because I know backstory, he definitely had been training for a long time. Because he's friends with Baron Corbin. And of course he teamed up with Pete Dunne and Oney and Burch and Lorcan and everything. So I know he got even more training. But storyline wise, he kicked out of the panel. He kicked out of your finisher. You did a super kick and a finisher. And he kicked out. So now you gotta just beat his ass. I mean, what else can Adam Cole do but to sit there and beat his ass? My cat being weird. I have a weird cat. I mean, she's a very beautiful, lovely cat, but I don't know, she does these bit of weird things. She definitely fits in because me and my family were a bit weird. But she is sitting on a chair, and she is facing the arm of the chair, so her face is into the arm of the chair. I think she's slightly depressed because there are a few times where she'll sit on the couch or on the chair, and she puts her head on the arm of the chair and just looks like she's depressed. So I don't know if, the pandemic 2020 is also getting to her. But she's just not feeling it. Sorry, I had to go on that tangent because I was looking over at her to make sure she's okay. But no, she's sleeping with her face into the arm of the chair. If your cat does that, just let me know. So I know that it's something normal. But yeah, what Adam Cole just needs to go, soon as Pat McAfee, steps out of a car somewhere, just on site, just beat his ass. Because he makes you look like a chump now because he took a super kick to the face, clean. It's not like Adam Cole missed it, or they sat there and said, oh, he didn't get all of it. No, that super kick was clean. That Panama Sunrise was clean. And then Pat McAfee kicked out of it. It's my rant right there. But I'm just shocked at Pat McAfee. There was the spot where I think he was on the top rope with Adam Cole. Adam Cole pushed him off, and it was a far jump, I have to say. He jumped far enough backwards to land into a table. But this match was good. Of course, there was the spot, because Pat McAfee was down out somewhere, the 3 members that were remaining in the Undisputed Era, there was a spot where the team stands up on opposite sides of the ring, beat down and tired and exhausted and everything, and they're all looking at each other, and then, they get that second win and they all start, fighting each other. Of course, that happened. That was a good spot. I think Adam Cole also did I think he was doing the spot. No, that was when he was doing the last shot. But I thought he was doing a punt as well. It was actually him doing his move because, yeah, he rolled down his knee pad to expose his knee for the last shot. But he was mimicking Pat McAfee when Pat McAfee does his punt. There was the spot too. Pat McAfee did the figure for a leg lock on Adam Cole. Adam Cole had turned it around. I was just shocked at Pat McAfee that, he he definitely did a lot of things. But my goodness, I don't know how, they're not like sore as all hell. Like I told y'all, I follow Adam Cole on Twitch, and he had streamed the next day, and a lot of people was like, "Yo, how are you still alive?" He said that he was doing good. He's in a lot of pain, but he was in good spirits, which was cool. And then of course you see a lot of the members of um, Team Pat McAfee and Team Undisputed Era showed up on NXT Live, and they seemed like they were still good as well. But this was a pretty good match. This match was for 45 minutes, and definitely, I would say it's not as exciting as other War Games matches, I have to say. I would have to say the second last year's War Games match was my favorite. Um, and then let me see, how many War Games matches was it? I would have to say with the ones with the Undisputed Era on it, this was the first one that they won. Um, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, this is the first one. No. They won the first one that they were in. This is the second time that they won. Um I think. Let me see. I think, yeah. Yeah. This is the Oh no. Well, this is the first one that they won as all four of them. Cuz they were in the War Games in 2017, but it was just Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly. Roderick Strong wasn't with them yet. But when it became all four of them, they have been defeated each time. So this is the first time that they won. But I have to say, them versus Team Ciampa was my favorite. And then the very first one, when they went against Pete Dunne, Ricochet, and the War Raiders, was my second. So this was my third favorite that they did. It was still good, but it was still good. Pat McAfee fucking doing his thing was a nice surprise. Um, but I have to say it wasn't as exciting as the other ones have been. It could have been because we don't have the fans, so you don't get the pops. And really, 2020, this pandemic has really shown how much the fans affect the match. Um, the times where you would get the pop and the excitement and things like that, I definitely miss that. It definitely helps out a match. It definitely gets you excited when you hear the pop and people getting excited and go crazy and stuff like that. I definitely miss that. So whoever decides to go to the first wrestling event, because it will not be this girl, definitely get as hype as you can. Because damn, man, it's 2020 has definitely been a very sad thing. I was looking at pictures from when I was at Extreme Rules, and when I was going to like Raw and SmackDown, and even back when I went to WrestleMania, and just missing that. I miss, you know, I miss the fans. I miss having the fans, going crazy and stuff like that. But like I said, NXT Takeover War Games was still a good show. Um, Now, even though that War Games was my third favorite that they did, it still was a good pay-per-view event. So going into NXT Live, it was a lot that was going on. Damian Priest was doing a lot, first of all. So first we started off with Finn Balor coming out, because is he is looking for his next challenge, because he is now healed from his broken jaw and everything. And Pete Dunne comes out to go against Finn Balor. And I was like, oh, that's going to be a good one. And then Kyle O'Reilly comes out. And of course, we had Kyle O'Reilly versus Pete Dunne quite a few times, and he wants to get a rematch against Finn Balor. And so then Damian Priest comes out, and I was like, ooh, Damian Priest versus Finn Balor is a good matchup as well. This is what I like about NXT. You know, what I like about NXT is that there is enough really good talent that has been built up well enough that Finn Balor can go against a bunch of different people and it would be a pretty good match. But I was like, I was sitting there like, wasn't Damian Priest just going after the NXT North American Championship? Like, shouldn't he be going after Johnny Gargano because Johnny Gargano and Austin Theory kind of screwed him over the match? But I was like, I guess when the opportunity presents itself, I would go for the NXT Championship as well. Now, of course, then Priest, Dunn, and O'Reilly starts going back and forth. Kyle O'Reilly was cracking me up because he started mimicking Pete Dunne a bit. Then Finn Balor kind of like walk away, and so Damian Priest was like, "Hey, champ, we're not done with you." And so Finn Balor mentioned he's going to defend his title at New Year's Evil, January 6th, which is a very interesting date, because we have New Year's Eve Evil with NXT, and then I forgot to mention on AEW they mentioned that they're going to have what's called New Year's Bash, which is in two parts. And I forgot which part is which. I think actually, um, part 2 is going to be on January 6th, and they're going to have a special guest, Snoop Dogg. So I'm sure there is somewhere in Vegas where there are bets for how long it will take for WWE to change Sasha Banks' theme, once they find out that her cousin and the person who does her theme, Snoop Dogg, is going to be on AEW. So, don't know how long that's going to take. But yeah, Finn Balor is like, hey, I'm not the one who's going to decide who I face. He said, that's William Regal's job, which I thought that was pretty cool. And then he was standing there, and then Scarlett comes out. Beautiful. Looking beautiful, of course. And she comes out, and I was like, ooh. I was like, now that's a good matchup. Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross, or AKA Demon Balor, who we haven't seen in a very, very long time, versus Karrion Kross. Like, sign me up for that one. So Scarlett, of course, walks around him. She didn't really say anything. And Finn Balor is like, hey, tell your man when he's ready, I'm ready. And so then Finn Balor walks away, and then Damian Priest got Charlotte's attention, and he said something. I forgot exactly what it was that he said, but of course he kind of came at Karrion Kross. I think he mentioned, tell him not to send his woman out to pick his fights or something along those lines. And she did a smile, and she looked at him and was like, all right, you're going to pay for that shit. And so she walks off. So then we get Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Jake Atlas. I didn't watch this because I have seen this match plenty of times. And so I don't know, but I did hear when I kind of like was going over what happened, it seems like Swerve is now turning heel, which is pretty interesting. And then after that, we get the Grizzled Young Veterans versus Imperium versus Everrise. And I did not see this match at all. But I'm pretty sure this was a good match. But we had Grizzled Young Veterans who defeated Everrise and Imperium. And so I thought I'm happy that we're starting to get back into the tag teams. Because it feels like ever since the Street Profits were called up, and Heavy Machinery was called up, it seems like there's not a lot of tag teams left in NXT. So I'm glad that we're starting to get some tag teams going once again. It could have been the pandemic too. Maybe my memory is a bit foggy, but it seems like there's not a lot of tag teams in NXT like that. But I'm happy that we're getting back to it. So then there was Tommaso Ciampa versus Grimes, where I didn't get a chance to see. Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae had a celebration because of Candice had won in the War Games, and then Johnny Gargano got his title back. They were out there with Austin Theory and Indy Hartwell as well. They presented her with a trophy that had a little doll that looked like Shotzi Blackheart as well. And then there is this vignette of Boa and Xia Li that I don't know what the hell I was watching. They were like punching. Boa was taking kendo shots to his chest and back, and Lee was doing punches, and they were all bleeding and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what the hell this is. I'm hoping this is going to lead to something, a lot better for her, because I like her. I think she's really cool. I think she has a unique a unique look and a unique set, especially since she was known for her kicks and things like that. But it seemed like they didn't know really what to do with her. So I'm hoping that this is a new gimmick for her, so that she's not like kind of like waiting around in the wings with, the constant losing. But we will see. So then we had Pete Dunne versus Killian Dane, and this was a good match. But we had Larkin and Burch, of course, who were interfering. Drake Maverick tried to help, but of course he got laid out, and then Damian Priest comes out to try to help him. But however, that's what caused him to lose. So I don't know if that's going to lead to something between those two. And then we had Raquel Gonzalez versus Amber Moon, which I also didn't really see either. But it looks like Gonzalez had defeated Moon. And I'm sure this was a really good match, first off, because the women in NXT definitely are pretty good. But it seems like now they are setting up Gonzalez to get a title shot, which I feel as though is still a bit too early for her to get. I'm sorry. There might be people out there that likes her, but I feel as though it's still a bit early for her to get that title shot. I think she needs to have another serious feud before she even goes down that path. Raw was Raw, like I said, Raw started out pretty bad and then it got a little bit better. There was the whole thing with Miz TV with Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. We had the whole thing with Lana and Asuka, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler, which it looks like they're trying to make Lana into a thing. Randy Orton had called out Bray Wyatt, and that was the main event. We had a tag team match with Ricochet, Dana Brooke versus Slapjack and Reckoning, who lost, and it looks like they're going to kick out Reckoning, and she's going to become Mia Yim, which I'm actually hoping for that. I feel as though Retribution is doing nothing for her. I feel as though she can definitely do more with just being herself in the women's division than being her, being Reckoning with Retribution. I don't know, it feels like there's not really much to do with Retribution. I mean, they're just there. There's not really a storyline or anything like that anymore. It just feels like they're just gonna be floating in the wind. So I'm just waiting for whatever the end game is, whether they take off the mask and reveal who they actually are. They can be a dominating faction. I mean, let's look at a lot of the factions in AEW and even in NXT. It can happen, but for some reason, WWE just wants to make it goofy, really. I mean, once Mustafa Ali got involved, it had some promise, because we're, tying in the fact that he was the hacker and him sitting there saying, like, you know, the reason why they're wearing the mask and having their names changed is so that people can laugh at them and that they can understand what's going on. And I like that. I like that bit. That I felt as though that was different, but it feels like they're not doing anything with that. They're not. Nothing is happening with that. So I don't know. I really didn't care for it. Then later on, we got the tag team match: Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Versus this was versus AJ Styles, The Miz, and John Morrison. Of course, this led to Sheamus mistakenly did a bro kick to McIntyre in the ring, of course. Um, and then that led to a brawl backstage, but of course, them being them, they brawled and then they decided to kind of go out for a beer to kind of make things up. I liked it. I felt as though that was a bit different. We had Orton versus Wyatt at the end, and of course, Orton had the upper hand. And then, always wondered like if they were gonna do something where Bray Wyatt is fighting, and then they have the Fiend kind of show up, which they did. They did that a few times. They had the Fiend show up on screen. But while they were fighting, you see the lights start to go down. And I was like, okay, I don't know how they're going to do this. But I forgot. Even though it's kind of live, it could definitely cut to a tape because there's no real fans there. And so I appreciate that they took advantage of it. But you see Randy Orton kind of like after he hit it RKO, the lights started to go down. And then the lights come back on, and Randy Orton was looking around. He looked down, and it was the Fiend who took the place of Bray Wyatt. So I thought that was very cool. He did, of course, the Mandible Claw to take out Randy Orton, and that was that for Raw. And I thought that was really good. I like that they're making sure to show that the Fiend is still being dominant. Maybe that Alexa Bliss may be a bit of a weakness, but he's not they're not letting it like kind of take down, not really taken away from the character, I should say. So I thought that was really good. But Raw, it ended on a good note. Started off pretty bad, but that's what Raw does anyway. So of course we got SmackDown tonight coming up. We're going to see what's going to happen with the Tribal Chief. And I forgot what else is happening on SmackDown. With KO, Jimmy Uso as well. We're going to see what's going to happen with the women's division with Sasha and Carmella. And don't know what they're going to do with Bayley. I mean, Bayley's kind of floating in the middle of nowhere as well. SmackDown is currently on. But that's all I got to talk about. So that's it for the Wrestlebread podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Shout out to Julian Rob Bass from Wrestling Court Podcast on AlternativeMinds.com. Keita and Jay from the Keita and Jay Show. Chris from We Talk Next Podcast. Nando and Larry from Half K Podcast. Devin Hafiz from Clark Street Wrestling. And my boys over at Powerbomb Jitsu. So coming up next week, I will be back to regular time on Tuesday. I am telling the truth this time. There was a lot that was happening this week. And so I wasn't able to record when I thought I could. But I am coming back on Tuesday to do a recap of Raw and SmackDown. It might be better for me to do Thursdays because then I can recap NXT and AEW as well. But it's alright. I'll see what works since I'm live. But I'll see how it feels on Tuesday. If you guys rather for me to do Thursdays, that way I can recap AEW, NXT, just let me know. But next week, I'll be back on Tuesday to recap Raw and SmackDown. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Jaydee Talks, that's Jaydee Talks, and follow the podcast at Wrestlebread on Twitter. You can also find the podcast on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook as well. Going live on Mixlr on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock Eastern. You can also find the podcast once it's recorded. You can find the recordings on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, Apple as well. Be sure to leave a review. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you felt about Takeover. How you felt about Shaq is coming. I doubt he's going to give us a performance like Pat McAfee. I completely forgot that he was in the Battle Royale, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale. He did pretty good, I have to say. I mean, but it was a Battle Royale, so you can kind of hide with that type of stuff. But in AEW, looks like it's going to be a one-on-one match, so I'm very interested to see how he's going to do with that. So thank you so much for listening, and until next time, guys, peace.